Hello, Debbie. How are you today?
Hey, Kim, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. And so I'm trying to get my thoughts together because we've been chatting for a bit before going online. So want to welcome you this week to Maximum Octane. And today your first episode actually dropped. So this will kind of be a part two and continuous. You have graciously agreed to sort of continue on and have a series about emotional intelligence and all the importance of it. So thank you for joining me today. And as always, the same as the last time you were on, all of the links to get in touch with Debbie is going to be posted on there. So I watched a presentation. I didn't get to see it live last night about, or live when you presented it, but I started the recording last night about when okay is not okay in the workplace, right? And so I have so many questions and comments about that, but when you think about it in general, we're always talking about in culture and employee engagement and all of those great buzzwords that people like to say, but they don't really want to put the work into it. And part of that is, assessments to see where everybody's at, where is their head at. We just want to say we're working on culture. We have pizza parties, we do a bowling thing, we have a birthday cake, and we think, wow, that's our culture. We have an engaged culture. We have a great place to work, right? Do you see that in the professional world?
Yes, in our office, we might refer to that as magic wanding. Right?
Magic wanding.
We, in so many things, right? We just wish that we could wave them on a wand and make it better or make it the way that we wish it to be. And the reality is that never happens. I'm reading, and this is so belated, I'm actually embarrassed to say this out loud, but in the spirit of authenticity and vulnerability, I'm very belatedly reading the book Grit. And Angela Duckworth goes into such wonderful discussion about what's talent, what makes people successful. And she talks about passion and purpose and skill and effort and all of these things. And so here's what it makes me think. I'm a huge sports fan, right? I love watching any kind of sports at any level. I'm really excited for the Winter Olympics coming up. I will lose a lot of sleep once again, like I did over the summer, watching the Summer Olympics. But we see those folks and we can armchair quarterback them and we can applaud what they do and we can talk about how amazing it is. But what none of us see are the 8 hours. I was a former gymnast, so I'll use my sport. The 8 hours in the gym, the sweat, the blood, the tears, the nutrition training, the sleep training, the weightlifting, the stretching, the yoga. None of us see all of what's under the hood of what we see when they perform. And, that's a little bit to your point, kind of this magic wanding thing, right? Organizations, we want and need engagement, and because that leads to so many wonderful, productive, collaborative things. And pizza parties are awesome. Who doesn't like a slice? That's not the weightlifting and the stretching and the yoga and the endurance training and the repetition. It's only that stuff. It's only seeing where we are and crafting a plan on how we get there that we actually get to culture change. So yeah, I'm with you. Everybody out there, if you ever do a presentation with a lot of people in a room and say, how many of you would like a more engaged workforce? You're pretty insured to get every hand to go up. It's the blood, sweat, and tears that has to happen underneath that gets you there. And that's the space kind of where we live. And not necessarily blood, sweat, and tears, but with effort, focus, and intention.
For sure. And it's not just saying it is not meaning that you have it. And by no means am I saying don't have pizza parties or buy a cake for a birthday or any. Those things are wonderful, but those acts themselves do not mean that you have an engaged culture or any of the other things that you need to make your organization run properly and have people really want to feel like they're part of something bigger and all of that. And what really struck me last night listening to the presentation on the when is it okay to be okay, or I'm paraphrasing here, is we have that piece, people talk about the 80-20 rule and they say, okay, 80% of your, it's 10% of your people in your workforce that are superstars. It's 10% that are in the bottom that really shouldn't be there. And then you have the 80% in the middle. There's all kinds of numbers depending which book you read. Some people feel a strong organization should turn over their lower 20% all the time to make sure, there's all those things. But no matter how you slice it or how you do the percentages, there's that middle piece, right? And those are the folks, whether they're in your family, whether they're in your group of friends, whether they're in your organization, that sort of get ignored because they're not causing any fires, right? They're just there, they're plugging along, they're doing their thing, they're not raising any flags, and they're not raising their hand to say, hey, put me in, coach, right? They're just there. And I'm probably going to show my age here, but I think of Jan Brady all the time, the Brady Bunch. For those of you. And, she always was like, Marsha. Why is it always Marsha, right? And so the Jan Bradys and many of you out there are the middle child syndrome and all. There's sort of that no man's land in between, right? And so there's so much more that we can get out of that no man's land, right? And so much more productivity, engagement, discretionary effort, and all of those things. So can you touch on that a little bit? Because obviously that was a presentation that was more than, a half an hour to talk about, but you guys really touched on some great things. And one more thing I just want to say, I find it so funny because Genos International, right, comes from Australia over there. And so whenever I hear something from you or Jeff, and they make a big announcement, that this is, Jeff Muno from North America. And it's just so funny to me to hear that. So yay, North America, that we're getting on the charts there. So sorry, I went down another rabbit hole, but let's talk about the Jan Bradys.
Talk about Jan Brady, Marsha, which is a really great analogy, by the way. But this group of Jan Bradys, right? These are really wonderful, good human beings who are likely coming to work every day. They're getting work done every day. As you said, they're not tossing up any red flags, but they're also not creating like brand new innovative ideas, right? They're sort of passengering on this organizational ship, if you will. And Jeff and I really like to call these folks, I hadn't thought about them as Jan Brady, so this is great. But this is organizationally, this is talent that's hiding in plain sight. There's a massive amount of talent in that population, which, by the way, is the largest population in an organization. You sort of reference this 10% at the top or 10% at the bottom or 20%. And we've been in this space for years, roughly over all these years, it kind of shakes out to about 16% are people that organizations would call top performers. About 16% are people who fall at the other end of that spectrum. And everybody else is in the middle. And so often, here's what happens. Number one, an organization puts a lot of time and attention, resources and effort into that population, kind of in that bottom 16%, because they are actively seeking to, and I know that you listeners can't see me, but I'm using air quotes, fix that, trying to fix that individual or that team or whatever that case may be. On the other end of that spectrum, you've got these folks who leadership really, I think, feels really great that these people are on board. These are strong performers. These are people that they count on. And sadly, what happens to those folks is one of two things almost always. One, they're just completely ignored. Unlike the Bradys, where Marsha gets all the attention, they're just kind of ignored because the organization's like, oh, Kim's good. She's doing her thing. But the second thing that happens with that is anytime that something is missing because we're lacking performance, or we've got this talent that's hiding in plain sight, but just yet isn't equipped to do it, top performers can tend to get piled on. We'll just give it to Kim. Kim will do it. Kim always bails us out. She'll take care of it. And so this is an interesting phenomenon that I'm going to tie together to this middle group. So this middle group, this talent that's hiding in plain sight, simply just doesn't know, hasn't been given the attention, hasn't had the opportunity to be measured on how they're doing certain things. And beyond the measurement, creating a plan and receiving some specific training on how to get there. I don't know what I don't know. Yet it's a gift when you tell me when I learned something I didn't know, but now you need to tell me how do I get there? I didn't know that I was lacking here. Now I know that I'm lacking here, but how do I get there? And that's the if you could just take some time and effort with that group, it's kind of like, and you might have gotten to this part in that presentation, it's like hot water is really good, right? We can do a lot of really great things with hot water. Hot water at 211 degrees is hot water. You make an awesome cup of tea with hot water. But you kick that up 1 degree from 211 degrees to 212 degrees. Now it's something completely different. Now it's steam. And
that's
steam
one of my favorite
locomotives. Yeah.
Favorite videos. If anybody has not done that, do yourself a favor and Google 212 degrees. And it's amazing about that one more degree in this and everything that if you give it, it's wonderful.
1 degree. And so these Jan Brady's can be just 1 degree away
Jan
from,
Brady.
I know, poor Jan, but she's serving us well. So she's getting some good attention. This is great. This group of people with that 1 degree, right? They're so close. If they can have some attention, some measurement, some coaching, some action planning, and some training, then that 1 degree, they only need to learn a little bit, but that gives you great benefit on the back end. That gives them great benefit on the back end. That gives the organization a great benefit on the back end. And the thing that I kind of wanted to sort of loop together, because we talked about that top population kind of getting ignored and or piled on. We've got all kinds of statistics, and there's one in particular that comes from OC Tanner, that 79% of people leave organizations because they don't feel appreciated. Now think about that. 79% of the people, ultimately the reason that they choose to walk out the door is because they didn't feel appreciated. So by ignoring our top performers and piling on them, we are not merely running the risk of them walking out the door, we're actually opening the door for them to walk out of it because we're not expressing appreciation and for all of their efforts. And with everybody else, if we can help people grow to understand how to express appreciation appropriately, how to become more emotionally intelligent in your leadership and in your service and in your teammateship. By the way, I think this is a huge element to the Great Resignation. If organizations are not giving their people a reason to stay, then that is giving them a reason to go.
I verified the numbers again yesterday, I think, because it was so staggering to me that there's 11 million, we'll call it job openings, so they want to say career, whatever, but job openings and 6.9 million people unemployed to fill them. So we are there's never been a time in our life that it was so important, emotional intelligence and really truly engaging our culture and employees and putting in that work, because we're not only competing with our industry, whatever industry it is, we're competing with every industry because there's so many job openings and so many people are desperate. They're offering to pay to move people, working remotely, crazy different kind of benefits and signing bonuses and all these things. It's not, years ago, if you were in the automotive, if you were in the automotive business, you're a technician, your shop owners were competing with other shops. Right now, they're competing with 11 million jobs throughout the country. And the remote world has really opened that up and made it even more competitive. So one of the things that there's a few things that you said that I want to just touch on. There is sadly, sometimes an attitude of business owners or management that says the middle group is there by their choice, that they gave them the same resources and the same tools as the top group, performing group has. And they're leaving it up to the Jam Bradys to raise their hand and say, coach, put me in, or I would like special training, instead of the opposite. What can you say about that a little bit?
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And I think that this is all about growth and development and betterment, right? So let me use myself as an example. When I was a much younger gal, I was a gymnast. I was a competitive gymnast. I was never going to be Nadia Comaneci. I was never going to be Mary Lou Retton. And now I just am in awe of an athlete like Simone Biles. And I'm in awe of her for a multitude of reasons, including her very focused attention on well-being, which we could probably talk about in a separate session. But no matter how hard I worked, I'm never going to be Simone Biles. However, with some focused attention, and that I think that's the key, is focused, right? Because a lot of training is that it is, I'm going to put it out there. And it is what it is. And you get it or you don't, or you get some of it or you don't, right? The beauty of being in this space is that assessments are designed so that you get very specific information. You get to know exactly where you are excelling. Where are my strengths? Where am I showing up in a way that's really making it happen in a productive way with the people around me? And where are my gaps? Where am I missing those opportunities? So the power of assessment is that it's very customized. And when you get very customized result, and I can see my strengths and my areas of opportunity for growth, and then you put me into a training program, now I get to pick out the elements of that training program that are really resonating with the areas I want to capitalize on and I want to grow in. So let me come back to Simone Biles. I'm Debbie. No matter how much training and coaching, no matter where you sent me, I'm never going to be Simone Biles. Yet I could have been a much better Debbie gymnast with focused training, with a customized action plan, with focused coaching. And so this is that piece in the middle, right? Where people say, well, we gave them all the same skills, right? You could put me in a calculus class, but I don't really have the underpinnings of the math to get the calculus. So what I hear in training programs around calculus is what the peanuts teacher did. Wah, 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 right? I can't grab onto it. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't get how it applies to my world. But when you start measuring me and I can see those things privately and personally and customized to me, and then I go into a training program because now I have the underpinnings of the information. That's like giving me a steroid to learn. And that right there is, I think, the element, Kim. It is helping people who fall into that kind of, they're okay. Well, how can you move each of them a little further to the more productive side? Because if an organization did that, if everybody got incrementally better, the entire organization is going to benefit from that. We connect better, we communicate better, we collaborate better, we are more engaged, we're better leaders, and then we get all the wonderful things on the back end from that. So it's not just picking up this group of a block and trying to move them as a block all the way over, but rather helping each person hone their skill set and develop their skill set, each of them individually, which collectively moves the entire group closer toward really strong performance.
That's such an important point, because I think as evolved as we think we have become as mentors and leaders and business people, there still is a mentality of, here's the training, here's the onboard, here's the whatever, you do it. And it really isn't customized for each person. And that's where I think the danger zone is right now, with, of course, trying to attract fantastic internal customers and keep internal customers that we have, and that people don't want to put in the work to make it customized, to really look at each person as an individual and say, this is what resonates with them. This is what's important to them. And it fascinates me because we do it all day long in sales, and everybody's a salesperson. Anyone out there that's going, I'm not in sales, I'm not a salesperson, you're full of it, because you sell
never
something.
try to get your kids to eat their peas. You're a salesperson.
Your kids eat your peas, your dog to, whatever, go outside, your, significant other to get that couch or car or whatever. You sell all day long. All day long. I don't care. I just love when people are like, I'm not a salesperson. Yeah, you are. I watch you all, you are. But in sales, if you're selling with intent, you learn about understanding the buying personalities, right? If you're, whatever industry you're in mine, the automotive, we know that our customers that come in, external customers, are typically, either they're a fear-based buyer, their comfort, their performance, we have a few other ones, but when you are giving them the information, you still give them the same information, but you have a little bit of a different twist to it. Because if you are a fear-based buyer, that's your buying personality, and you're always afraid of your car breaking down, I'm not going to speak to you with the same exact way I would somebody that cares just about performance and their vehicle being performance, right? I'm going to change the words. If you need brakes, I'm still going to explain to you about the brakes and the how and the why it works, the same way I would for the performance person. But I'm not going to say, oh man, you're going to be able to stop on a dime when you're going 100 miles an hour, because the fear-based person, buying personality, doesn't care. I'm going to talk to you about safety and vice versa. And so we spend a lot of time and energy, learning those things about buying personalities, or whatever you want to call them. But then for our external customers, but internal customers, we don't. And we're just like, oh, it's one size fits all. Here's this, training block we have, and we're not paying attention to. In an organization, if you have a group of any more than 2 people, when you're having a meeting, you have to bring up the things that are interesting or appeal to the 2 different kind of people. You don't have to have separate meetings. You can touch on something and then touch on something else, but we completely ignore that fact that people are different. And more, people are grasping onto their individuality and saying, hey, I'm not like everybody else. I don't want to be everybody else. This is me. This is what's important. And why aren't you noticing that?
And, there's so many rich things in what you just said there. And the thing that occurred to me when you were talking about recognizing kind of the buying styles is, in my world, because I'm always talking about emotional intelligence, right? These are elements of emotional intelligence. This is really understanding the other person's perspective, right? This is empathy. Can you walk in that customer's shoes? What is it like to be your own customer? If you were getting this message from yourself, right? What would that look like? What would that feel like? And what emotional intelligence is really sort of this connective tissue. It's really this humanness. It's connecting from one person to the other, authentically being curious about where they're coming from and wanting to offer them a solution. And that's the case certainly in sales, because there's a lot of effort placed on sales training and with salespeople to do that, because
sales is emotion,
revenue,
right? And sales is based on emotion.
People, but I will tell you, we are not thinking machines who feel. We are feeling machines who think. We human beings do everything on emotion, and the thinking is on the back end of that. And while I would love to take credit for that quote, that is coming from a neuroscientist called Antonio Damasio, world-renowned neuroscientist. We are not thinking machines who feel. We are feeling machines who think. And this notion of having human emotions and feelings, even if people say, oh, I don't let that intrude on my workplace, it's impossible, because they are intrinsic in us being human. They are the very essence of our humanity. And so they come with us all day, every day, all of the time.
Well, except for all our members that are of family, whether it's spouses, significant others, or, parents and children, they don't take anything home with them. They draw a line before they leave
Yeah. Can't really scoop that out and put it in your locker at the workspace, right? I mean, that goes home with you. And what happens at home comes with you, right? Holistically, we are beings who sleep and eat and work and love and have families. And in the last 2 years, work came home with us and home came to work with us in a bigger, more broader way than it ever has before.
Oh, yeah, it did.
And you made such a really powerful statement that I wanted to circle back to it, because when organizations are looking at having competitive advantages, right? And this is what every organization is after, right? We want a highly engaged workforce. We want to have a competitive advantage. We want to be able to do it bigger, better, stronger, faster than the other guys that are out there. This is the sporting part of being in business in this country. Well, if you would love to, here's a great nugget to write down, right? If you would love to have a competitive advantage, then treat each other and treat your staff and treat your leaders and have your leaders treat your staff and your leaders treat each other. Then treat them emotionally intelligently. Be smarter with those feelings that are already in your workplace rather than ignore them, maximize them. Learn about them and hone them to be productive. Because what you said, Kim, is so very true. It used to be organization A was competing for employees that came from that community. And everybody had their hand in that same candidate pool. And now that is no longer the case. The longer work from home and remote work comes about, the more organizations realize that if we're going to succeed, we need to break down some of these barriers we used to have. We need to embrace that people can live anywhere and do this kind of work for us if that's possible. So in essence, everybody is kind of competing for everybody. And what is your competitive advantage? Most organizations will start to talk about what they've achieved, right? Our organization does this, our products do that, we do this, which is really important and part of the discussion. But I will tell you that the competitive advantage is culture, and it's crafting a culture where people feel valued and appreciated and heard. And if organizations can craft those kinds of cultures, then what they're doing is giving people a reason to stay, giving people a reason to tell other people to come work for that organization, giving people a reason to do business with that organization. And if you're not actively building a culture where people feel valued and appreciated and heard, then by default, you're driving them out the door.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said about by default, because there's so many times that I see business owners, because some of them are not leaders or, mentors. So we're just going to say business owners to just encompass everyone. But so many times the thought process is just, this is our structure. Here's how we have it. It makes me crazy looking at job advertisements or whatever. And it's like, oh, come work for us. We treat you like family. Only Monday through Friday, no weekends, no nights, no whatever. Holy cow. People haven't wanted to work weekends or evenings for years. That is so, that's like not even that's like saying we serve your food hot at a restaurant right at this point. And part of being aware of the emotional intelligence and empathetic and understanding people's needs is working with them again individually and not having that our schedule is 8 to 5, that's it. If you have a possible internal customer or a current one that, hey, their life has changed. They now have to drop their kid off at school or whatever, take them to piano recital. I don't know, in the afternoon. Who cares if they start a half hour later a day and then they take a shorter lunch, or if they, leave an hour early one day a week? If it's planned and it makes sense and you understand, and everybody understands that this is the kind of company that we are, we truly understand that you are individuals. We truly understand you are humans, and we're going to do whatever it is that we can to make your life easier, because stuff's thrown at you all the time. It shouldn't be from where you work as well, right? We have to open our mind to being flexible and doing things that we haven't done before, right? And really acknowledging the individual humans, because holy cow, if we don't, we are not going to be in business.
Well, the world of work is never going to look like it did pre-COVID.
No.
It will never go back to what it looked like pre-COVID. And so the parameters of the rules in the pre-COVID work world are not ever going to all apply to the post-COVID work world that we're in, right? And so you're right. This is a really interesting topic, because if you have organizations who are managing these key performance indicators, like you have to be here at 8:30 and you have to stay until 5, if that's a KPI, I could come to you at 8:30 and I could leave at 5, but if you're not concerned about what I'm doing while I'm there, like I'm literally marking time for you. If what you're really after is my work output, what I do for you, what you expect that to look like, and when you expect those projects to be done, well, then who cares when I do them? What does it matter if my best working hours are from midnight to 8 a.m. and you need this particular project in by Thursday at 5? Is it really relevant? And not all jobs certainly apply to this, because I want to circle back to the parts counter position that you mentioned a bit earlier. But if I have a position where I don't have to be at a counter or at a particular station, right? What does it matter when I get it done? What matters is I give you high quality work, that you appreciate I've given you high quality work, and I turned it in on time. And so that's a big leap for a lot of folks. And COVID really pushed this notion of growth mindset and agility, because not everybody was like down with that, right? But we had to be. There was a period of time that you had to be. And so I think this opened the eyes of a lot of organizations to say, we were doing it this way because we've always done it that way. So, okay, but now we can't do it that anymore. So how do we do it if we can't do that? And in so many circumstances, doing it a different way, even if it was forced growth mindset or forced agility, created all kinds of eye-opening opportunities for new ways to get work done. Now, I promised you that I would circle back to the parts folks, because you mentioned them earlier, and I was kind of connecting those folks who are so integral in a business, because they are the conduit between the company and the community. They are the connective tissue, right?
Our service advisors and the parts people, they're the face of the business, and it really doesn't matter who owns the business or who's whatever. It's that, the service advisors, the person that is that face, right? And so
and not
huge.
only the face, but the heart and the soul and the trusted advisor, right? So I'll use kind of a girly example here, right? I had the same guy cutting my hair for years until he moved, which was a very sad day for me.
How dare he?
How dare he? How could he do that? But I must have followed him to 7 or 8 different salons. It wasn't the salon. It was him. I had a relationship with him. I trusted him. I knew that I was willing to try new things because I trusted him. He was the face and the voice and the heart and the soul. I followed him salon to salon. When he left a salon, I didn't stay at the salon. I went with him. And the parts folks, that's the relationship that they have with these customers, right? They are the heart and the face and the soul. They're the people who should be the trusted advisors. And so to your point, a customer might not know, nor might not even care who owns the dealership, but they know that when I walk in there, Chris gives me great service. I know if Chris tells me that this is what I need, I can trust Chris. I'm not getting sold something I don't really need. I'm not getting sold something less than what I should have. I can trust Chris's advice. So these people are integral in the success of a business. And sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So they'll be kind to a customer, which is always great. Mm-hmm. Be kind to somebody who comes in and browses but might not buy anything. And they might say, have a nice day. But this is kind of the pizza party thing, right? Imagine if you took all of these service folks and parts folks and you had them go through an opportunity to see where they were really rocking it from an EI standpoint, a connection standpoint, and where there might be some gaps and some very simple things to do to close those gaps. And they made deeper, stronger, more trusted connections with the community and your customers. Just think about the uptick of repeat business, the uptick of increased sales, because they would be more apt to recommend a few other things that could also help in the situation. Somebody's not coming in for a transaction. Now they're coming in because they have a problem that they want to be solved and they trust the person who's solving them. The loyalty and the commitment to that organization, that literally could be worth its weight in gold. And then having those parts folks be appreciated and feel valued for what they do with the community in their job causes them to have a reason to stay, not a reason to go down the street to a competitor or leave for a whole other industry, but a similar kind of position for 50 cents more, right? This is a two-way street. So this helps the individual, which helps the business, which helps the individual, which helps the business, which grows the business because you're making these strong inroads into a community. And also the last piece is this helps from a succession planning standpoint, because when you involve these folks in this kind of growth and development at any stage of their career, listen, all of us, we're lucky if we get older, right? And so we start aging and people start retiring from their position. If you've invested this kind of training, it is so much more efficient to start moving people out of contributor positions and into leadership positions because they've been developing and using these skills for quite some time. So it's a short-term business, personal, professional, long-term organizational opportunity, which is so exciting for Jan Brady.
It really is. It really is. And I cannot believe the time went by. So I'm going to ask you to come back again. There's so much more to talk about this. But today for everybody, your assignment, make a list of your Jan Bradys and sit down and be honest and say, who are the people that we really haven't been focusing on because they've been under the radar? They're not in trouble and they're not like put me in coach and getting dumped on, all of the extra work and a whole other conversation about what you're doing with people that you're giving all this stuff to because they do it because you're making them want to become a Jan Brady because they're going to stop showing you what they can do because they get all the stuff. But make a list of your Jan Bradys today and start being active with intent of what we can do to kind of build those diamonds in the rough. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me again today. And I am going to send you an invite in a few minutes for our next one.
Fantastic.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Stay safe, make good choices, and stay inspired. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.